Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Open Series in New Jersey. I'm Nick Miller alongside Legacy Specialist Ely Kassis. How you doing, sir? It's good to see you.
Good, thanks.
Now, when I think of you, I usually think of beautiful cards and then usually Grixis or some sort of blue-red Delver deck.
Yeah.
You know, that is what I've seen you play over the last couple of years.
It's interesting, I always get a deck labeled to me, and I think me, out of most of the people I know, have varied decks for a long time, but when I find a good deck, I try to make it the best possible, and I play it for a good long while until I don't think it's the best deck anymore, and then it's back to the drawing board. So Grixis has been labeled to me. Some people thought I always played Miracles, other people thought I was just always on Bug Delver. Just, it's a lot of different decks.
Well, the drawing board has brought something different here.
Yes.
And it's a deck I've seen a little bit of in the past, but it's never that popular. Food Chain, of course, the Food Chain combo. We've seen Jonathan Jobe make this deck pretty popular. But you've kind of just, as you said, went to the drawing board, looked at the format, and said this deck is very well positioned right now. Talk about why.
So a lot of people are on Miracles and Lens right now, and I've been trouncing Miracles with this. It just is very powerful. They have a hard time getting through Abrupt Decay. They have a hard time dealing with combo. And Food Chain is just so easy to get out at 3. It's just one cheaper than a lot of the other combo decks. I don't want to be show and telling and then them having a Caracas and dealing with my threat. I don't want to be casting Sneak Attack at 4, just having a hard time getting through days. Food Chain just slips in under the radar and lets you play a lot of powerful things that people just aren't equipped to deal with. I feel like I'm playing a different format than everybody else.
Right. Of course, your build here this is kind of a combo deck, as they say, but it's also got this like beat down element that you can also go to. We'll go over the combo real quick. That, of course, involves Food Chain, and then usually Mist Hologriffin is the combo piece. You get to do cute things like search it up with Manipulate Fate. You also get to pitch it to Force of Will, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
But then once you have that engine, you get to make infinite mana for creatures. And then what do?
Then you play this nice Emrakul card right here, take an extra turn, and...
It's a nice foil Emrakul, of course.
Foil German, no less. Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. Fierce Empath can funnel it out. You can go get the Emrakul to combo off. Or you can just do crazy stuff with your mana, like play Tasigur and Gurmag Angler and just have tons of power on the board. Just more than they can have. And there's a lot of situations where sometimes you want to have the Mist Hologriffin, but you have the Food Chain, and you can delve out Angler and then sack Angler for 8 mana, which is more than half of Emrakul already, and then just power out Emrakul.
Just cast Emrakul with a bunch of mana and then an exiled one of those.
You see Carpet of Flowers on the sideboard. I had 2 out one game, and I could actually cast Emrakul with no Food Chain. This is hilarious.
Right, an interesting angle this deck has taken. You know, we've seen this deck in the past, but it hasn't had the Fierce Empath route, and this card allows you to find your Emrakul, which is a card that the old versions couldn't normally find without something like Genesis Hydra. But you also have these other targets, like you said, Tasigur and just Gurmag Angler, that allow you to beat down.
This, my particular list is very different from what I feel most lists are trying to do. This is a blue-black deck that splashes green, which people don't anticipate playing Food Chain. Deathrite's black. The whole deck's black, Baleful Strix, and then you have all the blue cards. But then the green cards are just Fierce Empath, which you don't actually cast, because you're usually playing it off Food Chain. And you just have Food Chain and Abrupt Decay for green. And then you have a couple cards in the sideboard, but not much at all. So one of the nice things to do is you can just power it out as a blue-black deck, doing whatever you want, and then combo off whenever you need to with the other color.
Right. So when you're not doing the crazy bunch of mana, just flooding the board with 3/3s, that end up getting you an Emrakul or getting what your payoff cards are, you just kind of beat down. You got a Vendilion Click as well, that can be a clock. Not a lot of decks can just deal with the 3/3 flyer that is Mist Hologriffin.
Yeah, multiple Mist Hologriffins and Food Chain are just infinite, can't block, can't attack. You just have to sit there while I swing for 9 and then untap my creatures, and they bounce out and bounce back whenever you want. It's like having 3 Morphlings in play. It's just incredible. And then Fierce Empathing for an Angler on the same turn and casting it is just a solid turn 4.
Yeah, Gurmag Angler has certainly shown its power in the Legacy format. Looks very good here as well. Of course, like you said, Deathrite Shaman helps you play Food Chain on the second turn, lets you do all kinds of stuff. You got Baleful Strix holding the mess together, cantrips, Brainstorm, Ponder. Of course, you have Force of Will. But then you got a suite of discard here. You got one of each different discard spells. Is that kind of your option instead of having a bunch of removal?
Yeah, so Thoughtseize is obviously one of the best ones that most people run, but having too many loses you too much life, and then you're weaker in matchups like Burn and the Delver aggro matchups that are trying to get in quick, and losing life sometimes just sets you off where you don't have another turn, and you really need that last turn to go off. Duress is great for fading people because turn 1 you fetch out a swamp, duress them, and they're like, all right, he's on Storm, I know what to do. And then they just totally butcher their hand with a Brainstorm, and then they find out you're not that, and it's just sweet. I actually had a game where I did that, but then I got stuck and I couldn't do anything else, and he killed me. So he sideboarded for Storm and not what I'm playing.
Right.
Just didn't know what to expect.
That probably created a bad time for him when he saw what you were doing the next game.
Oh, I forgot too. When I mentioned that this is a blue-black deck, just splashing green, that's why you don't play Genesis Hydra. The double green, the not being able to use it when you're not actually comboing off is not very good.
All right, so you've kind of gone away from some of the cute stuff. You don't have Noble Hierarch in here as well.
Right.
Just kind of a controlling deck that has the food chain element.
Yeah, your ideal play is Swamp Deathrite on turn 1, and then Island Baleful Strix sometimes, and maybe using your Deathrite to cast a Thoughtseize or something like that.
You mentioned, you think the format is ripe with miracles and lands. This deck has a lot of basics that you can fetch up, kind of play around the Wasteland decks and lands at the same time.
Right, and Deathrite Shaman is just great against lands. Turn 1 that, you just feel very comfortable sitting behind the wheel. And if you don't have that and you have one of the 4 hand discard spells, taking their Exploration or their Mox Diamond, something to slow them down just seems to do the job as well. Because as soon as Food Chain hits, they almost can't stop you. They keep killing things, but eventually you'll have 1 mana and one of these 2 guys, which will then funnel the Food Chain combo and go off.
All right, let's go over the sideboard. You've got, like you said, Carpet of Flowers, 2 of. You got Null Rod, Dread of Night, Flusterstorm, and Grafdigger's Cages as your multiples. What are you trying to hate? Obviously, Dread of Night here, great against stuff like D&T. But what are these other options for? Carpet of Flowers is a card we see out of Storm, as you mentioned, but now you can bring it in here.
So Delver matchups can be kind of tough. That's what the deck doesn't want to play all day because the matchup's around 50-50, especially if it's Rug Delver. They're a quick enough clock, they have days to set you back on tempo, although we do have 4 Baleful Strix, so you can really kind of hose them with that, but they also can board in Pyroblast and start countering it and just start messing with it with Ancient Grudge or anything like that because it is an artifact. So having this to accelerate our mana is really helpful. It prevents the Stifle Wasteland plan from actually affecting us. You do have a lot of basics in the deck, but getting basics with every turn makes it really hard to make a 3-color deck fluid. So they tend to have us by about a half a turn, which is just enough for them to win. So this is to catch us up on that plan. Null Rod, it's great against Miracles, and it's great against Storm. Really just the best thing for it, and I absolutely love it. I've been boarding it in against a lot of my matchups. I've played 2 Death and Taxes and 2 Miracles players and a Storm player already, so it's been coming in 5 out of the 6 matches.
It's been pulling its weight.
Yeah. Dread of Night, I just told you, Death and Taxes multiple times, but I also boarded it in against the last Miracles player I played because he was the European version that runs Days and Monastery Mentor's main. So having that was just clutch. He couldn't kill me. I mean, once this is out, he has a 1/1 for the rest of the game. And multiple Flusterstorms for the same thing. I want to make sure I have answers to most things. I like boarding out 2 Forcibles most games, so this tends to be what I bring in over that slot. And Grafdigger's Cage is self-explanatory. What's funny is most people call for an Oracle ruling when this is out and I have the Food Chain combo going, because they're like, can you play Mist Hollow Griffin with Grafdigger's Cage out? It's like, yes you can. It's the Exile Zone, it's not the Graveyard.
We've seen a lot of that with Battle for Zendikar, using stuff out of the Exile Zone, but this is a whole different breed.
Oh, totally.
We've got a bunch of 1-ofs here. You got, Engineered Plague, Disfigure, some removal there, Hydroblast, Jitte, and Scavenging Ooze, just kind of shooting the little things you need to take down.
Plague is my variation on Dread of Night. I didn't want to double down on Dread, and I wanted to have some variability. So if I play against Elves or something like that, I can bring it in. I actually boarded it in against a Bug player I played also. He True Name Nemesis me and went pretty far, but I also knew he had Delvers and Click. So at one point in that game, I had brought it in. He didn't have True Name, but he had Click out, and I plagued it. And then 3 turns later, he drew Delver and played it, and I was like, sweet, that's a wizard too.
Got him.
Yeah. Disfigure you just need it against the fast decks, just a little more engine to slow them down, and again, variability of creature hating. Scavenging Ooze for the long games. I actually bring this in against Storm, which most people don't expect. Keeping them off their graveyard stops Cabal Ritual. You can gain some life here and there, depending on things. Some games you can exile your Mist Hollow Griffins if their plan is to put them all in the graveyard. Plus, you're boarding out your combo kill against decks like Storm because you're playing the control deck at that point. So it's just nice to have another threat sometimes when you need it. Hydro Blast, we're kind of weak to the fast red decks, like I was saying before, and it's nice to have that little extra piece to bring in. And then Jitty is just our alternate win plan. I also beat the Bug player in the other game that I won because of Jit. He just was expecting a Food Chain combo and stopping that. Instead, I just went Fierce Empath and went and grabbed Angler, and then next turn Jittied up the Empath and swung with both.
Yeah, getting able to juke and jive around the people that are thinking to try to play around Food Chain with just this beatdown deck with a little utility seems really good right now.
Yeah, I think it's solid. I don't think anybody's ready to play a game that's on this kind of a scope where you have so many different paths of attack.
Any cards you were toying around with that didn't make the cut?
I turned around with a few. Let me try to think. I tried the Genesis Hydra that we talked about, but again, the mana base didn't want to support it and just wasn't useful enough unless you were comboing. That's a good question. None that I can think of offhand. The sideboard is the thing that changed around a lot. I tried Mystic Remora a lot. Are you familiar with that card?
See that in Vintage.
Yeah, you do see it a lot in Vintage. And I played it in this 2K version that I played. I played it in a 2K and top 8'd with this deck. And it was awesome against Reanimator when I played it one round. But it was a situation where if he just didn't go off and waited till I couldn't keep paying the cumulative upkeep, then went off, I was probably done for anyway. Because I didn't have the multiple land drops to play. This deck only runs 17 land, which is a little unusual. It's a little low. It's more like a Delver deck, but there's no Wastelands in it. So you can get away with 17 because it's on the 4 Ponder, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Deathray Shaman plan. And then you have the Carpet of Flowers if they're trying to harsh on your lands. So it didn't quite fit.
All right, well, you're 6-0 so far with the deck.
6-0.
It's looking great. We've had you on camera. You've been playing the matchups you want to play and beating them, so you metagame pretty well. We'll see how it turns out. Hopefully you day 2. Hopefully a nice run in front of you.
Thanks for having me.
Ely, thanks for joining me here on the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all week long for the action here in New Jersey.